Promise me. Promise me you'll make them pay for what they did to my grandson." Those were the last words of a dying 84-year-old man who grabbed Angela's hand, thinking she was a nurse. What he whispered next would destroy a $500 million empire and send a millionaire CEO to prison for life. But this wasn't just about medical fraud. This was about blood money. And Angela Reed was about to turn one dying man's confession into the most brutal corporate takedown in American history. 3:47 a.m. Angela Reed sat on her kitchen floor, her hands trembling as she carefully broke apart her daughter Maya's inhaler. One inhaler, $89. Angela's bank account, $23. She had to make this single inhaler last 3 weeks instead of one. "Mommy, I can't breathe." Maya's voice drifted from the bedroom, weak and desperate. Angela's heart shattered as she counted out the doses. 1 puff for today, maybe half a puff tomorrow. She was literally rationing her 7-year-old daughter's ability to breathe. The electricity bill sat on the counter like a death sentence. $156 past due. Pay it. And Maya gets no medication this month. Don't pay it. And Maya's nebulizer stops working when they cut the power. This was Angela's daily nightmare, the arithmetic of survival. Light or life, medicine or shelter, dignity or breathing. Can you imagine having to choose between your child's next breath and keeping the lights on? Hold that thought, because Angela's story is about to get so much worse, and then so much better. Angela worked as a medical records clerk at Metropolitan General Hospital, invisible, overlooked, filing papers while rich families got instant care, and her own daughter gasped for air at home. That morning, she submitted her 3rd employee assistance request, begging for help with Maya's medication costs. Within an hour, it was denied. The signature on the rejection: Preston Langford, the hospital's CEO. The rejection note was like a slap in the face. Employee demonstrates pattern of financial irresponsibility. Assistance denied. Recommend financial planning courses. Financial planning courses. For a single mother making $12 an hour. For a woman choosing between electricity and her daughter's lungs. Angela stared at that rejection letter, not knowing that Preston Langford had personally reviewed her file, not knowing he'd recognized her name from somewhere that made his lip curl with disgust, not knowing her past was about to collide with her present in the most devastating way possible. Meanwhile, Dr. Zora Ellis walked through the hospital corridors, her stethoscope draped around her neck like armor. At 29, she was the youngest chief medical officer in the hospital's history. But being the only black woman in hospital leadership meant every single day was a battle against racism disguised as professionalism. She passed the medical records office and stopped cold. Through the glass window, she saw Angela Reed organizing files, her movements efficient despite obvious exhaustion. Something about Angela's profile triggered a memory: the way she held her shoulders, the determined set of her jaw, the protective way she clutched her phone. Zora's mind flashed back 15 years. Riverside Children's Home. A scared 14-year-old girl crying because older kids had stolen her glasses. Another girl, 3 years older, with fierce eyes and protective instincts. "Nobody messes with my little sister," the older girl had said, facing down the bullies. Zora's heart pounded. Could it be? After all these years? She watched Angela answer her phone. "Maya, baby. Mommy's at work. Take your medicine like I showed you, okay? Just a little bit, remember? We have to make it last." The same gentle but worried tone. The same protective love. The same voice that used to read bedtime stories in the group home. Angela Reed, Angela, her protector, her sister. But before Zora could process this reunion, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Preston Langford approached, his expensive shoes clicking against marble like a countdown to disaster. Zora ducked around the corner, watching as Preston stopped outside the medical records office, studying Angela through the window. His eyes narrowed with recognition and something else, contempt mixed with cruel satisfaction. Preston opened the door without knocking. "You, records clerk." Angela looked up, recognizing the voice that had denied her daughter's medication assistance. "Yes, Mr. Langford." "I know you," Preston said, stepping closer like a predator. "Riverside Children's Home. You were one of those charity cases my family used to visit. Angela's face went pale. The memories flooded back. The wealthy Langford family who came to the foster home twice a year, bringing donated toys and condescending smiles. The bratty teenage son who treated black kids like animals in a zoo. I remember you specifically, Preston continued, his voice dripping with malice. Always trying to act tough, always protecting the weak ones. What did you call yourself? The big sister. I don't know what you're talking about, Angela whispered. Oh, but you do. Preston pulled out his phone, scrolling through social media. Angela Reed, single mother, minimum wage worker. Amazing how some people never rise above their circumstances. He showed her a photo from the foster home's website. Angela at 17, graduation day, arm around a younger girl with glasses. Look at you now, Preston laughed. Still in the same position. Poor, powerless, protecting people who can't protect themselves. Some might call it admirable, I call it pathetic. Hidden around the corner, Zora recognized herself in that photo, the younger girl with glasses that Angela was protecting. Her breath caught in her throat. You know what I remember most about you? Preston said, leaning against Angela's desk. How you used to think you were so much better than everyone else, so righteous, like you didn't understand your position. The racial implications hung in the air like poison. But look where all that attitude got you. Filing papers for people like me, begging for payment plans for your sick kid, still the same ghetto queen, just older and more pathetic. Angela's vision blurred with rage, but she stayed silent. She needed this job. Maya needed her to keep this job. Preston enjoyed her silence. My family donated thousands to that place, probably paid for your food, your clothes, your education. And this is how you repay society. By having kids you can't afford and expecting hard-working people to pay for your mistakes. Mr. Langford, Angela said quietly, I need to finish these files. You'll finish them when I say you finish them, Preston snapped, and you'll do it with gratitude, because without people like my family, people like you would be living on the streets where you belong. He turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Angela, that protective instinct of yours, it's going to get you in trouble one day. Some fights aren't worth picking, especially when you're just a charity case who never learned her place. Around the corner, Zora felt something she hadn't felt in years, the desperate burning need to protect her sister, but she also felt something else, the certainty that Preston Langford had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The next morning, Zora sat in the boardroom, the only black face among 12 white executives. Preston led the meeting, his racism carefully disguised as business strategy. Our patient demographics are problematic, Preston began, clicking through his presentation. We're seeing too many uninsured patients, too many Medicaid cases, too many high-risk populations. He showed a slide breaking down patient demographics by race and income. The math is simple. These patients cost more to treat and pay less in return. We need to find ways to discourage their patronage. Dr. Williams raised his hand. Are you suggesting we discriminate based on race or income? I'm suggesting we discriminate based on profit margins, Preston replied smoothly. If certain demographics happen to be unprofitable, that's not our fault. That's economics. Zora's jaw tightened. Mr. Langford, we took an oath to serve all patients regardless of their ability to pay. Preston's eyes narrowed. Dr. Ellis, your idealism is admirable, but you weren't hired to be a social worker. You were hired to be chief medical officer, which means ensuring quality care for all patients, which means ensuring this hospital stays profitable, Preston countered. Perhaps your background makes it difficult for you to understand business priorities. The room went silent. Every person at the table knew exactly what background meant. My medical degree from Harvard seems to have prepared me adequately, Zora replied coldly. Harvard has very generous diversity programs, Preston said with a thin smile. I'm sure they were eager to help someone with your unique perspective. The implication was clear. Zora didn't belong here. She was only here because of her race, not her qualifications. Preston clicked to the next slide. Cost-cutting measures. We need to reduce unnecessary treatments, longer wait times for non-emergency cases, more stringent insurance verification, higher co-pays for high-risk patients. You're describing systematic exclusion of poor patients, Zora said. I'm describing successful business management, Preston replied. And if you can't support that, perhaps you should reconsider your position here. The threat was clear, but Zora was starting to understand something Preston didn't know was coming. She wasn't just fighting for principles anymore. She was fighting for her sister. That evening, Angela worked late again, trying to avoid another encounter with Preston. At 2:47 a.m., she heard voices in the hallway that made her blood freeze. The Washington situation is perfect, Preston said. Old black man, no family advocates, Medicaid insurance. We can bill whatever we want. Angela crept closer, listening through the door. But he's stable, another voice protested. Dr. Richardson, the night shift supervisor. His heart surgery was successful. He should recover fully. Should he? Preston asked meaningfully. Complications happen, especially with patients who can't afford proper follow-up care. Mr. Langford, are you suggesting... I'm suggesting we let nature take its course and bill insurance for every possible intervention along the way. Angela's heart pounded. They were planning to let a patient die for profit. She followed them to room 314, watching through the doorway as Preston and Dr. Richardson stood over an elderly black man named Samuel Washington. Reduce his pain medication, Preston ordered. If he's uncomfortable, he'll decline faster. Sir, that's business, Preston snapped. Do it. Angela watched in horror as they condemned an innocent man to die in agony for money. After they left, Angela slipped into the room. Samuel Washington's eyes fluttered open, filled with pain and confusion. Please, he whispered. Something's wrong. The pain is getting worse. Angela sat down and took his hand. I'm going to help you. But first, I need you to tell me what's happening. Samuel's grip tightened. They're killing me, just like they killed my grandson. What do you mean? Marcus and my grandson Marcus, he had asthma, just like your little girl. Angela's blood ran cold. How do you know about my daughter? I heard you on the phone earlier, begging for payment plans, crying about medication costs. The same thing Marcus's mama did. Samuel's breathing became labored, but his eyes burned with purpose. Marcus came to the emergency room, 7 years old, asthma attack. They had his medication right there. They could have saved him. What happened? $500 copay, his mama didn't have it. Preston Langford himself came down to the ER and said, no payment, no treatment. Tears streamed down Samuel's face. I watched my grandson die. 37 minutes of fighting for breath while doctors stood there doing nothing because we couldn't pay. But Preston timed it. When Marcus stopped breathing, he said, time of death, 12:07 a.m. Bill insurance for emergency resuscitation. They billed $50,000 for treatments they never provided. Made money off my grandson's death. Samuel reached under his pillow with trembling hands and pulled out a small recording device. I've been documenting everything. Every conversation, every death, every celebration. He pressed play. Preston's voice filled the room. The Washington boy was perfect, sick enough to justify billing, poor enough to deny treatment. We made more money letting him die than we would have treating him. Angela's hands shook. How long have you been recording? 6 months, since Marcus died. I've been pretending to be sicker than I am, staying close to Preston, recording his crimes. Why? Because someone needs to pay for what they did to my grandson, and I'm dying anyway. But you have a daughter to protect. You understand what's at stake. Samuel pressed the recording device into Angela's hands. There's more, so much more. He targets black families specifically, single mothers, children with chronic conditions. He's built an empire on our deaths. I promise, Angela whispered. I'll make them pay. Samuel smiled weakly. Good. Because tomorrow Preston is going to show you exactly who he really is, and you're going to show him exactly who you really are. Angela took Samuel's recordings home and listened through the night. What she discovered wasn't just corruption, It was systematic genocide disguised as healthcare. Recording after recording revealed Preston's true nature. The deny list is our most profitable strategy. 43 patients refused treatment this month. Average savings $45,000 per death. That immigrant family whose kid died from pneumonia. They don't speak English. Zero lawsuit risk, pure profit. If we let 5 more chronically ill children die this quarter, we hit our profit targets. Make sure medications are always out of stock for families who can't pay full price. But the most damning recording was from a staff party. Let me tell you about our greatest success story. 7-year-old black male, acute asthma, family income below poverty line. Denied treatment per demographic protocol 7. Subject expired after 37 minutes. Insurance billing, $50,000 for emergency intervention not provided. Profit margin 100%. I bought my new BMW with that money. Every time I drive it, I think about natural selection in action. Angela had to stop the recording to vomit. He'd bought a luxury car with money made from Marcus Washington's death. She called Zora's personal number, found in the hospital directory. Dr. Ellis, this is Angela Reed from medical records. I have something you need to see. It's about Preston Langford. Long pause. Then Zora's voice, careful but warm. Angela, I know who you are. Room 12, Riverside Children's Home. You used to help me with my homework. Angela's breath caught. Zora, little Zora with the glasses. Not so little anymore. And I saw what Preston did to you yesterday. I've been documenting his racism for months, but I've never had proof of actual crimes. Until now. Can you come to my apartment? What I have, it's going to destroy him. Text me your address. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Zora, I looked for you when I aged out. I tried so hard to find you. I know. I looked for you too. We have a lot to catch up on. But first, let's destroy the man who's been hurting our people. When Zora arrived at Angela's apartment, the contrast between their lives was stark. Zora's designer clothes and luxury car seemed out of place in Angela's struggling neighborhood. But when Angela opened the door, none of that mattered. They embraced like the sisters they'd always been, 15 years of separation melting away. I missed you so much, Angela whispered. I missed you too. Every day. Maya appeared in the doorway, wheezing slightly. Mommy, who's this? Maya, baby, this is Dr. Zora. She's Mommy's sister from when we were kids. Maya's eyes widened. You're a doctor. Can you fix my breathing? Zora knelt down, her heart breaking at the familiar wheeze. What's wrong with your breathing, sweetheart? I have asthma, but sometimes Mommy can't buy my medicine because it costs too much money. Zora looked at Angela, who was fighting tears. It's $89 for her inhaler, Angela explained. Insurance doesn't cover it fully. I've been rationing it. Rationing it? Zora's voice sharpened with medical alarm. Angela showed how she'd been breaking the inhaler apart into smaller doses. I make one inhaler last 3 weeks instead of 1 week. Angela, that's incredibly dangerous. She could die from an asthma attack. I know, Angela whispered, but I can't afford $89 every week. I make $12 an hour. After rent, utilities, food, there's nothing left. Zora looked around the apartment. Past due bills on the counter, empty medicine bottles. Maya's school clothes laid out for tomorrow, clean but worn. Why didn't you ask for help at the hospital? I did 3 times. Preston personally denied every application, said I needed to learn financial responsibility. He said people like me have kids we can't afford, and the hospital shouldn't enable poor decision-making. Maya started coughing. Angela immediately reached for the inhaler, giving her a carefully measured dose. Mummy, it's not working as good as before, Maya said, struggling to breathe. I know, baby. We'll get you more medicine soon. Angela, Zora said quietly, I'm going to help you. But more than that, I'm going to help you destroy him. What do you mean? Preston has been targeting families like yours, black families, poor families, single mothers. He's been denying care and covering up the consequences. I've been documenting everything, but I needed someone on the inside, someone with nothing left to lose. Angela looked at Maya. wheezing softly while doing homework. "What do you need me to do?" "Be my eyes and ears, document everything. And when the time comes, be ready to fight." "I've been ready to fight since I was 7 years old," Angela said. "The question is, are you ready to fight with me?" "Nobody breaks us," Zora said, their old childhood promise. "Ever," Angela replied. They spent the next hour listening to Samuel's recordings together. With each revelation, Zora's medical expertise helped contextualize the horror. "This isn't just denial of care," she explained. "This is systematic murder. He's specifically targeting black children with chronic conditions because they require ongoing treatment. More chances to deny care, more opportunities for complications, like Marcus Washington." "Exactly. And there are dozens more. Every denied treatment follows the same demographic profile: black or Hispanic, single-parent household, chronic condition requiring expensive medication." Angela pulled up files she'd been secretly copying. "I found 47 cases in the past 2 years, all dead within 6 months of being denied care." Maya had fallen asleep on the couch, her breathing labored, even in rest. Both women watched her with fierce protectiveness. "He said I never learned my place," Angela said quietly. "He's been saying the same things in board meetings, questions my Harvard degree, says I'm only successful because of diversity programs. He wants me gone." "What if we give him what he wants?" Angela suggested. "What if we make him think he's won?" Zora studied her sister, the same strategic mind that used to outmaneuver bullies in the foster home. "You have a plan." "Samuel said Preston would show me who he really is today. I think he's planning something public, something to humiliate me and establish his power." "So let him." "Exactly. Let him think I'm broken. Let him get comfortable. Let him reveal himself while we're recording everything. And then we show the world who Preston Langford really is." The next morning, Preston arrived at the hospital in his blood money BMW, ready to execute his plan. Today he would publicly humiliate Angela Reed, remind her of her place, and enjoy watching a poor black woman grovel. He'd arranged everything perfectly. The monthly all-staff meeting in the main lobby, 50 witnesses to watch him destroy her dignity, a small accident that would require the help of the nearest employee. What Preston didn't know was that Angela was carrying Samuel's recording device. She had evidence of systematic murder. She had proof of racial targeting. She had documentation of Preston's crimes going back years, and she had her sister watching from the medical wing, ready to provide backup. Preston had spent his entire life believing that poor black women were powerless. He was about to learn how wrong he'd been. At exactly 10:47 a.m., Preston made his move. With deliberate clumsiness, he knocked over his $20 Ethiopian coffee, sending it cascading across the white marble floor toward Angela's patient files. Every conversation in the lobby stopped. Every eye turned toward the mess. "Oh no," Preston said with theatrical concern. "What a disaster." He looked directly at Angela with predatory satisfaction. "Hey, records girl, clean this up before it ruins those files." Angela recognized the moment Samuel had predicted. She knelt down, trying to save the files while 50 people watched. "No, no, no," Preston waved dismissively. "Get down properly, on your hands and knees. I want this cleaned up right." The crowd gasped. Several people pulled out phones to record. "You know," Preston said loudly, ensuring everyone could hear, "I remember you from the old days, Riverside Children's Home. You were always trying to act like you were better than everyone else." Angela's face burned, but she continued cleaning, playing her part perfectly. "My family donated thousands to that place, fed you, clothed you, educated you, and look how you repay society, having kids you can't afford, expecting hard-working people to pay for your mistakes." Preston's voice carried across the silent lobby. "Maybe if you'd made better choices, you wouldn't be crawling on floors. Maybe if you hadn't been so defiant. As a kid, you'd have learned your place by now." The racial undertones were clear to everyone watching. Angela's phone rang. Maya's scared voice came through the speaker. "Mommy, are you okay? Kids at school said you were in trouble." The entire lobby heard Angela's 7-year-old daughter's fear. Preston pulled out his phone, recording everything. This is perfect. Social media will love this. Successful white businessman teaches local welfare queen about work ethic. He addressed Angela directly, making sure his camera captured her humiliation. Tell your daughter this is what happens when people make poor choices, when they think society owes them something, when they forget their place. Preston's voice grew more vicious. Maybe if you'd worked harder instead of having kids you can't afford, your daughter wouldn't be crying while you're here crawling on floors. Angela's hands stilled. She could feel the recording device in her pocket, capturing every word. She could sense Zora watching from the medical wing. She could hear Samuel Washington's voice. Show him exactly who you really are. Slowly, deliberately, Angela Reed stood up. When she turned to face Preston, her entire posture had transformed from subservient to powerful. "My name is Angela Reed," she said, her voice carrying across the silent lobby. "And you just humiliated the wrong mother." Preston's smug expression faltered. Something in Angela's tone had shifted completely. "Last night, an 84-year-old man named Samuel Washington died in room 314. But before he died, he told me everything about you, Preston." Preston's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Samuel Washington, Marcus Washington's grandfather. Remember Marcus, the 7-year-old black boy you watched die for 37 minutes? Preston's phone slipped from his hand, clattering to the floor. "The boy you timed as he suffocated. The boy whose death you celebrated. The boy you used to buy a BMW. Angela pulled out Samuel's recording device. "This contains 6 months of recordings, Preston. Every racist comment. Every death you caused. Every moment of you calculating profits from denying care to black families." She pressed play. Preston's voice filled the silent lobby. "The Washington boy was perfect. Black, poor, sick enough to justify billing, powerless enough to deny treatment. We made more money letting him die than we would have treating him." The crowd gasped. Preston's confession of profiting from a child's death stunned everyone into horrified silence. "You've caused the deaths of 47 patients through deliberate denial of care. You've built a $500 million empire on the systematic killing of people who look like my Maya." Preston tried to speak, but Angela continued. "You filmed my humiliation. You told me I never learned my place. You made racist comments about where I belong. You used my daughter's illness to shame me. But what you didn't know is that I've been carrying the voice of every black child who died because of you. I've been Samuel Washington's dying confession. I've been Marcus Washington's justice. And your racist empire ends today." Dr. Zora Ellis pushed through the crowd, her medical coat flowing behind her like a cape. She'd heard every word, seen every moment of racist humiliation. "Angela," Zora said, her voice carrying medical authority and sisterly love. "I've got your back, sister." The crowd murmured. "Sister? How did the chief medical officer know the records clerk?" Preston turned, recognizing Zora but not understanding the connection. "Dr. Ellis, this woman is clearly unstable. She's making wild accusations." "I'm not just any doctor," Zora interrupted. "I'm the chief medical officer, and I've been documenting your medical malpractice for months. Every discriminatory comment in board meetings, every time you've questioned my qualifications because of my race, every patient you've targeted because of their skin color." Zora looked at Angela with fierce pride. "This woman isn't just exposing your crimes. She's my sister. We grew up together at Riverside Children's Home, where your family used to visit and treat us like zoo animals. You remember us, don't you, Preston? The 2 little black girls your family used to help with their charity visits. The ones you called names when your parents weren't looking." Preston's face had gone white, but Zora continued. "Angela used to protect me from bullies. She got in trouble for punching you when you called me that word. She took 3 weeks of punishment to defend her little sister." Zora stepped closer to Preston. "And now she's protecting every black child in this city from you." "Nobody breaks us," Zora said, their childhood promise. "Ever," Angela replied. Preston realized he was facing not just one woman, but 2. Not just accusations, but medical documentation. Not just exposure, but total destruction by the two foster kids he used to torment. "You're both finished," he snarled desperately. "I'll destroy your careers. I'll have you both arrested for libel. With what?" Angela asked. "Samuel's recordings of you celebrating denied care to black families? Your own voice using racial slurs? And my medical documentation of your systematic racism," Zora added. "The board meetings where you specifically target black patients. The emails calling me a diversity hire." Preston looked around desperately. His supporters were gone. His board members were distancing themselves. The foster kids he used to humiliate were destroying his empire. Within hours, the lobby confrontation went viral. "Racist CEO exposed" began trending worldwide. The video of Preston's racist humiliation and the damning recordings had been viewed 50 million times. News vans surrounded the hospital. Reporters clamored for interviews. The hospital's phone lines were jammed with calls demanding Preston's termination. Angela and Zora sat in a conference room, surrounded by evidence boxes and legal documents. FBI agents were reviewing Samuel's recordings, while federal prosecutors prepared charges. "He's done," Special Agent Maria Rodriguez announced. "Federal hate crime charges, civil rights violations, wire fraud, racketeering." "How many years?" Angela asked. "If convicted on all charges, life in prison. But more importantly, this case will change how we investigate racial discrimination in healthcare nationwide." Agent Rodriguez looked at both women with respect. "You've exposed something that's been happening in hospitals across the country. You've potentially saved hundreds of lives." "Samuel Washington started this," Angela said. "He died gathering evidence to protect other children." "And you finished it," the agent replied. "The foster sisters, who brought down a criminal empire." When Angela and Zora returned to the hospital, hundreds of people had gathered in the lobby where Preston had humiliated Angela just hours before. Families holding photos of loved ones who'd been denied care. Former employees sharing their own stories of Preston's racism. Community members demanding justice. An elderly black woman approached Angela. "My grandson died here last year. Diabetic coma. They said we didn't have insurance, but we did. They just didn't want to treat him." A young Hispanic mother carrying a baby spoke next. "My daughter has the same condition as your Maya. They told me the medication was out of stock for 6 months. I had to drive to another state to get it." Story after story of systematic denial, race-based discrimination, deaths that could have been prevented. "We're going to get justice for all of them," Zora promised. "Every single family Preston hurt." That evening, the board of directors held an emergency meeting. Preston sat at the head of the table, but his empire was crumbling. "The hospital's stock has crashed 73%, announced CFO Margaret Chen. "We're facing federal investigation, civil rights lawsuits, and criminal charges. Insurance companies are dropping us. Medical partnerships are ending. No one wants to be associated with systematic racism." Preston's voice cracked. "This is temporary. The media will move on. We just need to weather the storm." "Preston," said Dr. Williams, the board's longest-serving member. "The board has voted unanimously. You're terminated immediately. All benefits revoked. We're cooperating fully with federal investigators." Preston stood up, his face twisted with rage. "You can't do this to me. I built this hospital. I made you all rich." "You built it through discrimination and greed," Dr. Williams replied coldly. "Security will escort you out." As security approached, Preston turned to leave, then stopped. "Those pathetic foster sisters will pay for this. I'll make sure I revenge." "Mr. Langford," Agent Rodriguez entered the room. "Preston Langford, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, federal hate crimes, civil rights violations, and racketeering." As they handcuffed him, Preston's eyes found a window overlooking the lobby. Angela and Zora stood there, surrounded by the families they were protecting. The foster kids he'd tormented had destroyed everything he'd built. 6 months later, Preston Langford sat in federal court, wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of his expensive suits. The man who once humiliated Angela on marble floors now faced justice. Angela and Zora sat in the front row, holding hands as they'd done since childhood. Behind them sat dozens of families Preston had destroyed. "Mr. Langford, you've been convicted on 47 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, federal hate crimes, civil rights violations and racketeering. The evidence shows you systematically targeted black patients for denial of care, resulting in 47 documented deaths. You celebrated these deaths. You profited from them. You used racial slurs to describe your victims. You built a $500 million empire on systematic racism. This court sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. You will spend the rest of your days remembering that your criminal enterprise was destroyed by 2 black women you tried to break. Furthermore, all of your assets will be liquidated and distributed to the families of your victims. Your home will become a group residence for children with chronic illnesses. Your cars will be sold to fund medication programs. Every symbol of your wealth will be transformed into healing for the communities you tried to destroy." The gavel fell. As guards led Preston away, he passed Angela and Zora. For a moment their eyes met. "Nobody breaks us," Angela said quietly. "Ever," Zora added. Preston was led away in chains, destroyed by the foster sisters he'd once called worthless. 3 months later, Angela cut the ribbon on the Marcus Washington Memorial Clinic, built with funds seized from Preston's assets. The clinic would provide free medical care to low-income families, with a special focus on children with chronic conditions. "This clinic exists because of Samuel Washington's courage," Angela told the gathered crowd. "He spent his final months gathering evidence to protect other children. He died to ensure no other family would suffer like he did." Maya, now healthy and breathing easily thanks to proper medication, stood beside her mother. "Mommy, will kids like me be able to breathe better here?" "All kids will be able to breathe better here, baby. No one will ever be turned away because they can't pay." Dr. Zora Ellis, now Chief Medical Director of the clinic, addressed the crowd. "This clinic represents something powerful. It represents what happens when we refuse to accept systematic racism, when we fight back against those who would harm our children. My sister Angela showed incredible courage in exposing Preston's crimes, but she didn't do it alone. She had the support of Samuel Washington's dying confession, the backing of medical evidence, and the power of 2 sisters who've been protecting each other since childhood." The crowd applauded as Angela and Zora embraced. 15 years of separation healed, united in their mission to protect vulnerable children. "We've treated over 500 children in our first week alone," Zora announced. "Children who would have been turned away at other hospitals. Children who Preston Langford would have let die." A young mother in the crowd raised her hand. "My son has the same asthma as Maya. We've been rationing his inhaler for months. Can you really help us?" "Not only can we help," Angela replied, "but we have a fund specifically for medication assistance. No child will ever have to ration their ability to breathe again." The crowd erupted in tears and applause. Families who'd been suffering in silence finally had hope. This story isn't just about Angela and Zora's victory. It's about every single mother who's ever had to choose between rent and her child's medication. It's about every black family who's been turned away from a hospital because they couldn't pay. It's about every child who's suffered while wealthy executives profit from their pain. Samuel Washington died gathering evidence to protect children he'd never meet. Marcus Washington's short life became the foundation for saving thousands of others. Angela Reed turned her deepest humiliation into her greatest triumph. And Dr. Zora Ellis proved that sometimes the most powerful weapon against injustice is a sister who refuses to let you fight alone. Right now there are more Preston Langfords in boardrooms across America, targeting vulnerable families, denying care based on race and income. But there are also more Angelas and Zoras, ordinary people with extraordinary courage, gathering evidence, building cases, preparing to fight. Have you ever been dismissed because of your race? Have you ever been told you don't belong somewhere you earned the right to be? Have you ever watched someone you love suffer while those in power turned their backs? Drop your story in the comments below. This community is here to support you, to remind you that your voice matters, that your fight is valid. If this story moved you, if Angela's courage inspired you, if you believe every child deserves to breathe freely regardless of their skin color or their parents' bank account, then you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, share this story with someone who needs to remember their own power, because somewhere out there, another family is being targeted, and somewhere else another hero is preparing to fight back. The revolution doesn't start with the powerful, it starts with people like Angela Reed, who refuse to stay silent when children are dying. It starts with people like you, who choose to stand up instead of stand by. Nobody breaks us, ever. But Angela and Zora's story isn't over. What happened when Preston tried to run his criminal empire from prison? How did the Foster sisters handle the death threats from his supporters? And what secret did Maya discover about her own medical condition that would change everything? The next chapter of their story is coming, and it's going to blow your mind. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Because when the powerful try to silence the voices of the oppressed, sometimes the most dangerous weapon is the truth in the hands of someone who's got nothing left to lose. To everyone in the comments sharing your own stories of discrimination, of fighting systems designed to keep you down, of protecting your children against impossible odds, I see you. Your stories matter. Your courage matters. You matter. And to those who think stories like Angela's are unrealistic or too dramatic, open your eyes. Look at your local hospital's patient demographics. Look at who gets denied care. Look at who dies from treatable conditions because they can't pay. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just watch these stories, don't just get inspired and then scroll to the next video. Do something. Check on that single mother in your neighborhood. Donate to a medication assistance program. Volunteer at a free clinic. Vote for people who believe healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. Because every Angela Reed needs a community behind her. Every Zora Ellis needs people who will amplify her voice. Every Maya needs adults who will fight for her right to breathe. The next Preston Langford is counting on your silence. Don't give it to him. Subscribe, share, act. Because the most powerful stories aren't the ones we watch. They're the ones we write with our own lives. Remember, when we stand together, when we protect each other, when we refuse to let injustice have the last word, nobody breaks us, ever. I'll see you in the next story. Keep fighting.